Just show up. Just show up. Just show up. Hello, everyone. This is Anthony Morore, and you're tuned to the Now Tell Us podcast. And today we have a special guest with us, Marcy Axelrod. Marcy is a best selling and award winning author, a TV contributor, a 2 times TEDx speaker, and a management consultant. Her latest book, How We Choose to Show Up, was recently awarded the Hayakawa Book Prize.
Mhm.
Please welcome, help me to welcome our special guest, Marcy Axelrod.
Anthony, thank you so much. I love being here and I love how you opened that of just show up, just show up. Boy, do we have a lot to talk about because you don't want to just show up.
Yeah, so you just don't just to show up, just to show up. Oh,
No, we don't want to just show
just
up
show up.
because
Okay,
I'll explain why.
okay, then we're gonna just change that because all we know is that all that we've been hearing all the time is just show up, just show up, just show up. So we're gonna change that, and from that into something that you're going to tell us. But before we go deeper into the show, I would ask all the people to please share this episode with your friends. If you're watching us live, please interact with us. We love questions. We love your comments, and let's have a great time. Not just showing up. And as we wait for you to get ready, prepare your pen and paper where you're gonna take notes. Let's
Mhm.
now introduce officially this show. This is Now Tell Us. I'm your host, Anthony Morore, and here we go into the Now Tell Us show. Here we are.
Yes.
Why shouldn't I just show up?
Well, just like there are levels of quality inherent in nature, our behavior is nature, Anthony. So there are levels of quality in how we show up. And you know exactly what I mean. And so
Mm-hmm.
does everybody else, right? You can get out of bed and you're just grumpy, you didn't sleep well, you don't feel great, and your focus is completely on yourself. The last thing that you're doing is thinking about something kind you can do for someone else or
Mm-hmm.
having an inventive thought to bring to work to really change how the whole company functions.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, there are three levels, and all I did is put down on paper nature's model of how humans designed or how nature designed humans to show up. So there's a barely there level one, right? This is when you're just really you're checked out, you're sick, you're ill, you're grieving a death. Like there are good reasons to be barely there, but there's also reasons where we've just kind of let society get to us too much and we're just so burned out, we're totally checked out. That's
Mm-hmm.
barely there level one. You want to spend as little time there across your life as possible. What most of us do, in fact, 80% of us do this 80% of the time. And it's what I call just show up. It's level two.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of improvising through life. This is when kind of, you check your time, the weather, your outfit, and you just walk on out the door.
Okay.
That is just showing up. And you might say, well, what's wrong with improvising through life? What's wrong with this? Well, I'm going to explain what's wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And what's wrong is that we're designed to live with two different types of attention. Okay. In fact, we wouldn't have survived without it.
Mm.
But one type, which is what we default into most when we just show up, it's about getting stuff done. It's about the world being instrumental for us to control. and the focus is narrow, and we just kind of are busily moving through. And the
Mhm.
problem with that, right? You're kind of like, yeah, I get that. The challenge with that is that everything around us becomes an object for us to manipulate. It is the absence of care. It is
Mm.
the absence of the gradualness that lets you really perceive all the rest of what's going on. And
Mhm.
that's why we can feel disengaged and we can feel bored and we turn to um, binge watching of shows, and we kind of seek sugar, and we aren't as happy or as kind or as successful as we want to be. That's how a lot of people feel. And it's
Mhm.
because we're living more in the left hemisphere than in the right. When we're in the right, let me just explain this. And this is the work of Ian McGilchrist, a psychiatrist out of the UK. When
Okay.
well, let me just take us back to why we have two hemispheres in the first place. The left is so we could identify food and we could grab it and get it. So we could feed ourselves, right?
Mhm.
But we also had to avoid being fed to something else, like the tiger over there. So to avoid being fed to something else, we needed a different way of attending. We needed to be able to surveil the broad terrain, the savannah. What else is going on? What's the new thing that I don't know about that's out there?
Mhm.
So that is that hemisphere that perceives new insight, new information. It's in the flow of life. It's what's connected to the more. And we don't feel that when we're rushing or when we're stressed or when we're in this mode of, okay, I have 45 minutes and I've got to do this, 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 and this, and let's just get it done. And I've got to push these buttons over here and grab my bag and run out over there and do that, or right? So just showing up closes the door for us on, frankly, a survival skill, which is the one that is able to actually live in our perceiving system and sense, there's something going on over there. And I need to get into my sensing system and actually perceive it.
Okay.
Right? Okay, are you seeing the difference between just showing up and then level three, which is using the right hemisphere more often, is true what I call truly showing up. Levels one, two, three. Once you know what they are, it's like, you know what? Of course, it's been there all along. And you know it, and so does everybody. But until someone puts a model on it, and I have some really showy graphics that stick in people's minds, until you can kind of see it in front of you, sometimes it can stay in the background of your consciousness.
Hmm. I,
But then once you know, it's like, oh my God, I'm just showing up, and now I see that, right?
yeah, I think what you're talking about is something that I show on one of your diagrams, uh, talking about the truth about showing up. Barely there, just showing up, and truly showing up. So that's level one, two, and three.
That's exactly right. Now there's neuroscience behind, like this is just a diagram. It's just a
Okay.
one pager, but the book explains the psychology behind it, the neuroscience behind it, the evolutionary biology behind it, the philosophy, all of that. The
Okay.
physics, there's even physics behind it.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, in 30 minutes, we aren't going to get to cover all of this. It's definitely in the book, which, by the way, I believe is still 99 cents. I mean, maybe at the most $4.99 on Amazon. That's the ebook that's
Okay.
out there. The soft covers there too. But I mean, the point is, I'm going to explain to you what you are doing right now. Anthony, as you move, I'm noticing a heightened interest, a curiosity, right? Where is she going with this?
Mm-hmm.
In your head nods and the stillness of your body, I'm noticing you just turned on your sensing system. I mean, our bodies are meant to perceive the world, everything that's outside of us,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
And when you're doing that, you're truly showing up. You are taking in from a wholeness and you are absorbing. You are becoming actually one with me, right? And we are existing now in this space that's between us. There's
Mm-hmm.
a third. There's a third one. There isn't a Mars. There isn't a you and a me. There's a we that's going on, and
Okay.
our brain waves are actually resonating right now as a single wave.
Mm.
As you're open to perceiving me, and I'm
Yeah.
perceiving you,
Mm.
that is truly showing up. It doesn't just happen with people. Anyone who has looked at a flower or a view or something that creates wonder, you felt this, right? And when you look into your child's eyes, you feel this. And when your heart feels what someone else is experiencing, right? All of this is level three. And it also happens with ideas
Mm.
when you can connect things. So that's just a little teeny bit of what the difference is between just showing up and truly showing up, and why you don't want to dive into a deep, dark hole of narrow thinking that's out of context, which is the just showing up.
Yeah, and by the way, when you mentioned about your book, this is the book that we are talking about, how we choose to show up, nature's playbook for creating a meaningful life and the world we want. How, when was this book written?
Well, it was published not too long ago in April. So what is that? Five months ago or so.
Okay.
Um, and I started, I mean, but when people ask me, like, when did you write this book? When did you start writing this book? You know, my entire life has been the lead up to this book.
Mm-hmm.
And since we all have in us the experience of our elders and of society, everything that society went through,
Yeah.
it's in us as well. So I believe that, all of the world is in this book. All of history is in this book.
Mm-hmm.
And I talk about how that gets instilled in our DNA through epigenetics. It gets passed down, all the world wars, all the all the kindness, but all the bias and racism and anti-Semitism and all of that. So because everything shows up, it isn't just people who show up.
Mm-hmm.
The climate of the world shows up, our politics shows up, our economy shows up, our votes show up, what food we put in our bodies shows up, because it becomes our emotion, it becomes our thoughts, and it becomes our behavior.
Okay. We're getting it. And I hope those who are listening are getting something. And if they have a question, please, you can ask. We have Gobida Duta there who's saying, hello, Anthony. Hi, Gobida. And anybody else who's watching, are you just showing up or are you truly showing up as Marcy is telling us to commit to?
Yes, yes. I mean, there's a skill for each there's a skill for each role in which we show up.
Okay.
So, I mean, we actually, so nature created us actually in three roles, not one, and that's a part of the model of how we show up.
Mm-hmm.
So when you picture humans way back when we were still living in caves, right?
Yeah.
Thousands of years in the past. Each person there that you can envision in your mind, it, Anthony, they're individualized selves, but
Mm-hmm.
they're present within a situation, right? They're a member of a situation, whatever's going on right then.
Mm-hmm.
And whatever's going on right then is changing what they do and how they feel and how they think. So a situation is just a live thing. That's the second role that we're in,
Mm-hmm.
situation member. The
Okay.
third thing that's always shaping what we do and who we are is society. Back then we called it a tribe. It doesn't matter what we call it, but when you think about where we are, you're in a library, I'm in a library, right? The fact that libraries exist is a figment of society. The fact that we're both here near books, that's because we're choosing to be. Why? Because society has given us a sense of what books are and why they matter, such that we're drawn to be near them at this moment.
Mm-hmm.
So society is creating everything about us. So those are our three roles: self, situation member, societal member. And part of the illness that's creating the world as it is now, all the strife and the war and the dis-ease, is that we're not living our three roles the way we used to.
What
It
changed?
what?
What changed?
What changed is that we're able to live. We're told that we're individualized selves first, and that that's 95% of our world.
Okay.
Our language tells us that. Our school systems tell us that. There's also kind of a system of competition, right? There's only so many slots at the elite schools, or so many people who can become who can be promoted each cycle, right?
Mm-hmm.
And yet that's not the way humans were designed to live. So all of this kind of makes us less healthy and happy. And what the model of showing up helps us to do is to recognize, how do we be more fully in our situation member role, right? How do I feel you more deeply? How do I think about the implications of everything I'm doing on the rest of society, right? Everything we buy pulls through a if not seven continent supply chain, and leads people and to be doing things around the world. Do we need this item? Do we need to be pulling resources out of the earth so that we can use something for a short amount of time and then put it in the waste pile for it to create issues, right? Like, do we need? So the point is, think more about and live more fully in our situational roles, such that we notice more, right? So what I'm noticing now, this is what was right in front of me. It's a painting, and there are ducks. Where are my ducks? There's a duck. Are you
Yeah.
seeing this?
Yes, yes. We are seeing the
I
duck.
I can walk by and not see that, or I can walk by and see that. And the question is, how much more is my life? How much fuller are all of our lives going to be when we can engage that right hemispheric attention system more and actually see the more of what's out there? This is what some people have said to me, Marcy. We're sleepwalking through life.
Mm.
Because so many of us are just, we wake up, okay, I've got to do this. I brush my teeth, I put on my clothes, I get the kids out the door, I get to work, right? And but there's so much that you haven't seen that's going on. Like,
Mm-hmm.
when you think back to some of your fondest memories, those were probably right hemispheric moments of truly showing up. Is there anything specific you want to tell us about?
Remembering those times, like when I was born in a village, and I was looking after cows and goats, and going to the garden and just working on the crops. How about that?
So what would tell us, what was life like then? Because you were probably in unless you were stressed or ill or worried, chances are you were truly showing up for most of all those years.
Yes, living in that natural environment, and by the way, because I talk about that a lot, about how people used to really love each other and how they used to help one another. They were there, truly there for each other,
Mm,
and that great love that was the societal that was shared commonly by all people who lived close to each other. It was
wow.
great. You felt life, and in a natural environment, you felt life, living it in full. Though people from outside could be seeing the lack of resources or the low life that maybe they would say that you are living, but you are enjoying life to the full at that point.
Wow. I think everybody who's born outside of that environment needs to hear what you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
you're saying there was a tremendous love that everyone felt for each other, and there was this oneness.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. When children were growing up and you say that child is a child of the society, not like today's families that are uh, do we call it selfish, do we call it so protective, or I don't know what we call it, where eh, my family, my nuclear family is just for me and myself. And when you go back to those times when people were embracing each other, everybody was for the other. Your child was called the child of the society because everybody was looking after them, directing them in the directions that they should go. And so that was living fully, not just showing up, but showing up truly, I would say.
Wow. So you just explained it better than I ever could because I think people really understand what you're saying. And frankly, I feel it
Hmm.
in your smile, in the glow of your eyes. It is so clear that you grew up in a very, very special place and just learned that everyone's there together and everyone is for not just to each other, but you're with and for each other. That's part of the
Exactly.
show lexicon.
Exactly.
Wow.
How was it when you were growing up? What are the things that you yourself experienced that you can share with us?
Well, Anthony, I have to tell you, unfortunately, it was nothing like what you experienced. Each house on the block was its own little society,
Mm-hmm.
and we barely knew each other. I
Wow.
barely knew my neighbors,
Mm.
barely knew them at all, and the houses weren't that far apart. I mean, next door for me was, I don't know, 30 feet, 40 feet outside my window was the next house.
Mm-hmm.
And my parents were young physicians. They had both gone to the local medical school in New York,
Okay.
SUNY Downstate Medical School. Um, and yeah, they were trying, my mother was trying to build a practice. She's a pediatrician, and my father is a nuclear medicine doctor. And yeah, they would just run out of the house before I needed to go to school. So even though had to be out the door at 7:15, they were already gone.
So it's possible that you were living in a neighborhood which you may not be truly present because you don't know how the next house operates, you don't know how the next block lives, and you are just from the school to the house, from the house to the school, and that
Right.
would have been the
And
life.
there were no cows. What are the animals you tended?
We were looking after cows, looking after goats,
Go-
looking, yeah. So those were the animals that we tended.
Cows and goats. And was it multiple friends all together, or was it just you and your siblings?
It was multiple. I mean, you could have viewers by your own, but then we had some common experiences where we would go, uh, different people, different boys, and would take their ships and join them together and go to look for where we have good pasture together.
And you were basically walking and talking and looking at the land and trying to
Yes,
find
looking at the land, enjoying there, constructing toys from natural resources, not buying the plastic that people are buying today.
what sort of toys did you make?
Like we would make go-karts. Are you familiar with them? Go-karts out of wood, pure wood. You would make uh, you would construct the whole body from wood, and you would make the wheels from some huge chunks of wood, and we would drive the go-karts all around. So it was wonderful living there, truly being there, present.
Oh my goodness, you made go-karts.
Yes, we
That
did.
is really with engines in them?
No, not with engines. No, I used to live on the slopes of a mountain. I come from Kenya, live close by Mount Kenya, and there were valleys and hills, and so the go-karts would roll down the hill, and we would go. You can imagine that.
It's
They didn't have
amazing you didn't crash.
they didn't have engines.
Oh my goodness, but you're saying you were happy and it was
Yes, we
wonderful. I
were.
can see the
We were
glow.
happy. We were happy making things out of wood, out of clay, just about everything that we had. We
Wow.
came into contact with, just being there in the present, with our
Being
limited resources.
right, right. Well, but the resources you had is you had trust
Yes.
and you had friendship,
Mm-hmm.
right? And you had shared intent to create something,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
So,
Exactly.
so there was collaboration
Mm.
in an emotionally safe environment, and that really is the seat of inventiveness.
Yeah.
You know, play, that type of genuine play is how, frankly, ingenuity is birthed.
Yeah.
And,
Sure.
and it's definitely truly showing up. That is very much of a right hemispheric thing where you create more together, and there's a deep sense of belonging that
Mm.
most people don't feel. Most people are striving to just be. But after you can figure out how to do that, you can start to belong, and then from belonging, you get your life, which is becoming. Look at you. You have your podcast. You're helping people to develop who they are. You are becoming and helping others to become.
Hmm. Now, and how does that go? Or maybe you can tell us, because in your book you talk about self grounding. What's that for you?
Yes, yes. So each one of our roles, as you can imagine, kind of has some version of vector, a more developed and a less developed. So the skill for the self is called grounding, and it
Mm.
means knowing who you are and why. And that's really key because if you don't know who you are and why, your patterns keep showing up in your relationships with everyone, but everything else.
Mm-hmm.
Give you an example. In the morning, it's very important that I do something for my daughter, Victoria. She's home. She's in ninth grade.
Okay.
Wasn't always home. I had to send her away for almost a year due to mental health issues as a result of pandemic, divorce, all sorts of things. Um, and it's very important to me to connect with her. And the reason is because when I was growing up, as I just mentioned, my parents were already out the door.
Mm.
There was no one there. It was just me.
Mm-hmm.
The message from my family that I got is you can do it. You don't really need us. You've got this. And while that's a really nice thing to hear, it also meant you're alone.
Mm.
You're going to struggle by yourself without help.
Mm-hmm.
So my point is grounding means knowing who you are and why. And because I understand that my need to connect with her comes from my past, it may not be a fit for her. So I have to hold myself back from
Mm.
being in her space too much. I've
Okay.
also designed my entire day around being able to bring her to school. Now there's a bus,
Mm-hmm.
but it's my joy. It's my joy. And it's such a cherished gift that I can choose to be home and not need to be on a conference call before 8 a.m. because so I can get her to school.
Mm.
And but I don't need to impose my history on her. If it works for her to have that presence with me while she, before school, great. But if she wants her own space, I want to be able to offer that. So grounding, it's the skill for our self role, and it's knowing who we are and why. And it's an outward mindset. It's
Mm.
a big S for self, not a small s. The small s is that ego, I, me, mine. It's all about me. It's in the ventromedial prefrontal cortex, and it's talked about in a lot of books on the brain. This is a big S self when we talk about deep grounding. The
Okay.
skill, should I mention the skill for our situational role?
Mm.
So, common sense, readiness. But what is readiness? This is really a profound thing. Just like self is profound, readiness is profound. And essentially what it means is that you can choose how you walk into the room.
Mm.
Walking into the room can be anything. It can be getting up, it can be reading a book. Like, it doesn't have to be showing up for a meeting. It doesn't have to be like physically walking into a room, but readying yourself for the moment. And I talk about how to do that in the book. You need a calm body and nervous system to be able to truly have an open perceiving system to be with and for. Otherwise, the way you show up is acting on and, in essence, having control over. And what happens in that left hemisphere, sorry, I have like just something in front of my vision. What happens in that left hemisphere when we just show up is that our minds represent to us what's going on. So
Mm-hmm.
we don't truly see or hear or feel or sense. It's really just a re-showing up for us of the past. And you don't want to live that way. That's when it's like, what else is new? Life is boring. It's a whatever type of life. Like, why am I so disengaged from everything? Nothing matters. So readiness is key. I have a chapter on it in the book. And then there's a skill for our societal role as
Mm.
well.
Okay. Wow. Wow. So much and interesting stuff that you're sharing with us, yeah, from that book. And I know people could get more if they go and get the book or even connect with you and find out more about not just showing up, but showing up truly.
Mm-hmm.
For those people who may choose to follow up with you, what do you suggest is the best way to do that?
Sure, go to my website, choosetoshow.com. There's a contact page. I'm actually adding a lot more content to the website. Um, but I would be very happy to engage with people. I just really want to get these ideas out there because I think that the more people recognize the difference between just showing up and truly showing up, the more people will ask themselves right now, how am I choosing to show up? And then more of us will truly show up. And that is the only way to get back to what you were born into, which is this oneness, wholeness, the love, the support. That's what the world needs more of.
Being truly there, not just being there, but being
Right.
full.
It's mindfulness at a whole nother level.
Wow. Wow. Great. Thank you very much, Mercy, for not just showing up, but showing up truly.
I try.
We are almost going off air. We are almost through with our episode. But before we go, we like asking our guests to tell us one thing that we should never forget. What's that for Mercy? One thing that we should never forget.
The one thing is every moment you're choosing how you're showing up. So bring some intent and choose to be fully and truly there.
Hmm. Have nothing to add on that. You said it all. So, yes, once again, let me thank you for coming to our show, Mercy. It's been an honor having you on our show today.
Completely my pleasure. I am extremely grateful that you were open to having me on your show.
Yeah. And I also want to thank each and every person who's been listening to us or watching us, whether you've been there live or you're listening to these as the recorded version. We appreciate your time. Please leave us some comments, share this episode with all your friends, subscribe to our channel, and let's keep showing up truly, not just being there.
Yes.
So says Mercy. So this has been Now Tell Us. I have been your host, Anthony Murori, and together with our wonderful guest, Marcy Axelrod, we are saying bye for now, and until next time. show up truly. Bye.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.